Well, Roy, you're a tough act to follow, but Patrick Condon wants you to tell the people in India that state-of-the-art expressways are trams or subways, not big, wide roads. I'm here to give you something completely different. What I'd like to do is take you from Sydney or India to Vancouver, and I'm going to press this button and hopefully start this off. What I want to look at are different ideas to make housing more affordable, especially for millennials in Vancouver. And just out of interest, how many of you are concerned about the cost of housing? How many of you are not concerned about the cost of housing? Precisely. So what I want to do is share some ideas in terms of different forms of housing, different forms of tenure that might make housing more okay, this is the wrong presentation, but let's go anyway. Okay, I can read minds. This is right. I once sent out a Christmas card with this presentation. There it is. I'll send you the Christmas card. I'm not here to tell you that high-rises are the answer, but if you go to Australia, that's how they're addressing affordability. I'm not here to say that just modular housing is the idea, although this could work. And I don't have to worry about any of you being NIMBYs. One of the issues, though, is this whole question of vacant houses and suites. I could take my full 15 minutes and talk about that, but I won't. And there will be some time for questions, I gather, at the very end. One of the things, though, whether you're young or old, we all want different things. Not one size suits all. So to create different types of affordable housing, we're going to need different approaches in terms of housing forms, but also tenure, and it's going to take changes in policies and so forth. The first thing is we just make things smaller. And for those of you at the back, this also introduces a key idea, sharing. The reality is that sometimes we can make housing much more affordable if two people divide the cost. In this case, the back of the bed becomes somebody else's bed table. Many people in Canada grew up in very small houses, and yet we don't build small houses. And why don't we? We could, and we should. Because even people who hate higher density, they like this whenever I show this to them. One of the things I often notice is we got wide lots, 50 feet, 60 feet. Why don't we divide them in two and make smaller houses and then put basement suites in these houses? We should be building more and more multi-family housing, smaller multi. In New Zealand, I saw these two-bedroom apartments, 460 square feet. That's small, but for students and millennials living downtown, it works. We had an experience in Vancouver where they were building smaller homes many years ago. Some of you may know this building. Again, 250, 300 square feet, but they weren't like living in a coffin. If it's well designed, it can work. Recently, a developer in Surrey is selling $99,000 small self-contained suites. And I would want to see this idea encouraged. And if you agree with this idea, you should be going to public hearings and supporting it too. We're now starting to see laneway housing all around Vancouver and other parts of Metro. I think it's a good idea. One of the issues is, does it fit in? In Toronto, it doesn't always fit in. One of the questions I ask, though, is, do we not want to try and encourage more single-level rather than two-story homes? How do we discourage builders from falsely creating garages which eventually are converted to living space? The truth is, the other thing is, why are they always rental? I know a lot of people who eventually would love to have a laneway house as their first home that they've purchased. Zero lot line housing is a different approach to developing land. You basically remove the side yards or the front or rear yards. Interestingly, we do it along commercial streets, and yet when we go along 41st past this area, for some reason, we always feel we have to put spaces between the houses. We don't. We can learn from Europe, where the houses are built from lot line to lot line. They were done it that way 600 years ago. They're still doing it today in most European countries. And indeed, this is an experiment in a suburb of Amsterdam where they're trying to create, each person can build whatever they want from one lot line to the other. It may not be everybody's cup of tea, but it's making more efficient use of land. It does it for apartments, mid-rise buildings, all over Europe. Now Canadian cities, Montreal, Toronto, and yet we're still tending in Vancouver to feel we have to put land around each building. Again, not everybody loves this, but it's an idea. Another idea, instead of having a single family house, why don't we put duplexes or semi everywhere? For those of you who are not aware of the difference, a duplex is 2 units, one in front, one behind, one up, one down, or side by side. A semi is a house that's 2 sides, separate units, but it can also have its own land, so you can own your half of the house without it being part of a strata. Some people think of it as sort of second-class housing, but you just drive out towards UBC, as you know, or Point Grey Road, there's nothing second-class. So another idea is, why not take a single-family lot and put 3 homes, maybe a duplex in the front, a coach house in the back. And I did this in West Vancouver a couple of years ago, thinking if I can prove that this works in West Vancouver, it should work everywhere. But the trouble is, people are traditional. They want to keep neighborhoods the same until something is built. And then when they see it, they like it. It makes it easier. Again, in Vancouver, the idea of smaller homes, one behind the other. One of the other things is, when we build townhouses, why should they always be part of a condominium? In Toronto, they're not. Here, they tend to be. One of my concerns is, you move into a condo, immediately you're paying someone else to cut the grass. You'd be happy to cut the grass and save $40 a month. A local planner, Art Cowie, tried to do this in Vancouver. He created a development on Cambie Street with Laneway cottages in the back. It was difficult at the time because the law made it not possible, but we changed the law. I think it's an important lesson. One of the challenges we have right now is we don't have enough rental housing. Now, we're trying to encourage more construction. One of the reasons we built so much in the past is because we had all these government programs, but those programs are gone. The other thing is, rental housing is getting older, and we need to do something about it. Now, fortunately, a lot of the new condos are being rented out, but you don't have the security of tenure that you have at a regular purpose-built apartment. The other concern is it tends to be more expensive. In the old days, though, it was often not economical. My friend Maury Wask used to say it was the coins from the washing machines that made the projects economical. So we need to study how we used to do it and then learn from that. In the city of Vancouver, we have got an incentive program. As you know, STIR and now Rental 100, created by the city, have been effective. One of the reasons they're effective is these incentives. DCL waivers, which means you don't have to pay as much to the city. Parking reductions, density bonuses, and green lighting. And as was pointed out, if you can speed up an application. Ironically, of those 4 things, the one that had the biggest impact, in my opinion, was reducing the parking requirements. Because if you think about it, the cost of a parking space can be $40,000 or $50,000. So we need to rethink some of our policies in Vancouver. We need to encourage the replacement of some of those older buildings, small apartments with newer buildings, larger buildings, infill existing rental buildings. This isn't going to be popular. It is going to mean displacement. But if we leave things the way we are, in 30 years, we're going to have buildings literally rotting away, and then we'll wonder why we didn't change. Now, here's an idea that I think is particularly attractive to millennials wanting to buy or rent their first home. The idea of a stacked townhouse above another one. They're popular in Toronto, but not here. Okay. Well, let me keep... Oh, here we go. Now, I can give you this talk without pictures, but it is better with pictures. The idea of a stacked townhouse is simply taking one unit, putting it above the other. One of the advantages of it is that if there is a tech person who can figure out how to get these images back, it's great. If not, I'll just keep talking anyway. One of the advantages, you don't have a corridor. Each unit has its old entrance at grade. And when you think about that, that can become a very attractive feature. The other attractive aspect of it is you can put them back to back. So you begin to get the density of an apartment building within a ground-oriented form. The interesting thing is you can actually create the density of a high-rise in these 4-story stacked townhouses back to back. One of the challenges is accommodating the parking, but that can be done both underground or even on ground where you build above it. One of the other ways that we can create more affordable housing choices is by looking at new ways of building. Okay. Let me move forward a bit. There you are. If you lived in Toronto, you could move into one of these. You get the lower level suite for about $129,000. If you don't like one style, they come in other styles. There you are, you see, just like I said, back to back. So just looking quickly at a couple of ideas about alternative forms of construction. Do you know, when you think about it, we build housing the way today that we used to build it hundreds of years ago. We don't use the factory production that we could. But factory-produced housing has tremendous potential, and hopefully in your lifetime you will see it become much more popular in North America. One of the ideas that I've often promoted is taking modular units, setting them up as permanent housing, but even setting them up on vacant parking lots and using them, because there's lots of parking lots, there's lots of land around the city. Why not set up some modular units? They could be small, affordable rooms, or they could even be apartments. And these are some images of the kind of housing that you could have. We're going to finish off, I think, pretty soon. And there's a gentleman who left this watch up here, and I don't need a watch, but if anybody else wants one. When I started at SFU, I was involved with the university community. A number of people said, I think what you're doing is wrong. And I said, why? And they said, because students will never be able to afford to live there. And I said, where do you live now? And they said, well, we live in basement suites. And we weren't building any housing or individual houses. We were building mainly apartments and townhouses. But it gave me an idea, why couldn't you have the equivalent of a basement suite in an apartment? And anyone who's been to Whistler or resorts, you know how sometimes you have suites and rooms related with interlocking doors. So this was the idea, to take a 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom apartment and have another door to the corridor for that 3rd bedroom. And I think if there's a theme to my talk today, it's about exactly this. There's no reason why I have to continue building in the future exactly what we built in the past. Let's be more imaginative. Let's be creative. Let's allow things like suites within suites. And if we do that, then ultimately we may begin to address, at least in a small part, the housing issues that are troubling all of you and troubling so many people in Vancouver today. Cheers.